from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
My child transforms when he is in nature. He is already a curious little guy, but when we are outside, it's like he turns into this free version of himself who comes up with new games, new questions, and he is, dare I say it, a little easier to parent. There are just fewer meltdowns and more opportunities to play independently. I do live in New York City though, so finding nature and time to be in nature is not always easy. Today, we're talking about what's scientifically known about the benefits of being in nature and how we balance it with our own unique and very real lives.
The natural world has so many ways to grow the creativity of your children, and really just sitting there until they kind of start to do that, because the other one is nature is a boredom buster and really helps kids build that ability to manage boredom, which we want them to have long before they pick up a cell phone.
Welcome to Healthy Children, the podcast for parents from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. I am a pediatrician and a mama figuring it out. This is a judgment-free space where all questions are good questions and the answers will hopefully be even better. Let's get started. Today, I'm joined by Doctors Pooja Tandon and Danette Swanson Glassy, who are pediatricians, mothers, child advocates, authors, and most importantly for our episode, nature lovers. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited to talk to you both. You just wrote a fantastic book. It is called Digging into Nature, Outdoor Adventures for Happier and Healthier Kids from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And I wanted to start by asking you, why? Why did you write this book? Why did you write it now? Are you worried the kids are not spending enough time outdoors? Let's start with you, Pooja.
Well, there are many reasons, and you listed many of them right there. I mean, I think as pediatricians, both Dr. Glassy and I were finding that the kids we were talking to, the families we were working with, were busy, were overscheduled, were sometimes not able to prioritize time outdoors. And we wanted to create a resource that could be helpful for families to both understand the health benefits, but also think of strategies that might work for their particular circumstances.
Yeah. Tell us about your why, Danette.
Over the course of many years in practice, I was seeing the same thing we all are, less time for families to be outside. And I got thrown a couple of curveballs by families who expressed this and started to look into it a little bit. There's a lot of information out there about nature prescriptions or park prescriptions where healthcare professionals are supposed to just tell their patients or write a prescription. And that didn't seem very genuine to me. Really, why were people not going out? It wasn't because I had not told them. It was really this looking into the barriers that keep people from getting their children out in nature. And so it really helped us fuel the information we wanted in our book.
Yeah. You also talk in the book about your own experiences with your kids in nature, including how much easier it can be to parent outside, which I have to tell you made me feel seen. Could you tell us a little more about those experiences with your own kids? And let's go again to you first, Pooja.
Yeah, I mean, I have two boys. They're now teenagers, but when I first was in this space or started thinking about the importance of nature for children, they were both under 5. And I have a part in the book where I talk about this idea of, I was reading the book Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, who talks about this concept of nature deficit disorder. And I got through a couple of chapters while sitting on the beach while both of my kids were digging and digging in ways that were just not possible indoors, that I could have just let them do their thing for that long. And it really intersected with the work I was doing around the time in researching physical activity and the health benefits of movement for children, and thinking about this idea that, outdoor spaces are not created equal. And what is it that has been supporting us as a family, helping my children thrive? What is the magic of being in nature as a family?
Right. Danette, what about you?
Yeah, same as you, Edith, in your opening, I noticed when my children were toddler age how much easier it was to parent, especially if we were kind of getting a little meltdowns and things inside. Just go outside, and suddenly that all went away. So definitely started using it as a parenting tool into their school age years, really seeing them manage social situations better when they were outside and managing multiple friends over at the same time. And then as teens, really seeing them gain some real life skills through their management of planning their outdoor time or their social time outdoors. So many benefits that I saw in my own children, and really use that nature time for all of us.
Yeah. And some of those you really see with your own eyes, right? How everyone just relaxes a little bit, sort of brings down I don't want to call it heat, but it is heat sometimes when you're, in the trenches with a toddler inside. It just sort of all comes down a notch when you get outside and everyone just breathes for a second. So let's talk more about those benefits, right? There are many known benefits of spending time in nature, not just for children, but also for expectant mothers and the whole family. And some of those feel intuitive, like reduced stress and better concentration. But others are not really that intuitive, and people may not have heard about them. So, Pooja, tell us about these benefits.
Yeah. And so, soon after that episode on the beach where I was reflecting on how important nature was, I worked with a group of colleagues on a literature review. So we tried to scan all the evidence we could find. And there are a few big buckets of kind of the strongest literature. And one of that category is what you might expect is physical activity, is that when children are outdoors, they move more, and we know physical activity is beneficial for their heart health, their healthy weight status, for their muscular, skeletal, their ability to engage in sports, all of those things. Another big category is mental health benefits. So Studies have shown that children and people of all ages really have lower symptoms of depression or anxiety after spending time in nature. They can concentrate better. Children after outdoor recess show better behavior in schools and ability to concentrate on their work. And then some were surprising to me, like vision. There are studies in thousands of children where they've looked at, even spending an extra 40 minutes a day outdoors was associated with less risk of myopia or needing glasses for distance and slowing the progression of that myopia. And there's different theories about that. It could be that, they're not focusing as much on close range things on our screens or devices, but that was a really interesting one.
Yeah, I was definitely struck by that one when I was reading your book. I was like, oh my goodness, another reason to get outside, I guess. I just didn't realize that vision had known, benefits and potential improvement, right? If you're slowing down the development of myopia. Speaking of development, Danette, tell us a little bit about those benefits to development, which I know is a big area of interest of yours.
So we all know about the developmental milestones of the first 5 years. From birth to 5, children progress in their language skills, their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, their social emotional skills. And we know when that happens in a safe, stable, nurturing environment, we're building resilience in those children for better mental health and ability to manage life stresses. And it turns out that time outdoors and in nature and in natural landscapes really supports that, not only for the 0 to 5-year-olds, the little loose parts that they're picking up, their uneven surfaces to get their big muscles going. You're sharing in that with naming things, and so their language is growing, sharing books about nature and promoting that. But also then in your school age and teen children, as they begin to socialize or plan or learn to manage risky adventures in the outdoors and manage that successfully, builds that resilience and life skills for kids. So nature is your perfect platform for promoting the development and resilience of your children.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I also wanted to ask you, there is this concept, right, in play and in childhood development in general, where we as pediatricians encourage parents to let children lead in play. I love that you touched on that concept as it relates to nature in your book. I have to tell you, I'm not always the best at letting my child do this. So what does it look like? Just give us some examples of what it looks like to let children lead when we are playing outside.
Well, you definitely, have to find a spot with nature, a natural spot. And that could be outside your front door or at a nearby park or schoolyard. Maybe you don't have those things so close to you and you have to look for it at a library, or a house of worship has a little green space or whatnot. And then, of course, just making sure it's safe and you're kind of putting the guardrails on for a child who's so young they don't have judgment about traffic or putting things in their mouth, and then let them go. Maybe a prompt to them. What do you see? What can we pick up? What should we collect today? What do you see in the sky? I wonder what that bird's doing. So starting with some language prompts, maybe letting them explore and dig, and you do it next to them if they're having trouble getting started, but then let them go and ask them about it. Then let them, as their language skills develop, tell you, oh, I'm digging for gold, or I'm looking for dinosaur eggs, or look under that bush. I'm sure that there is fairy houses under there. The natural world has so many ways to grow the creativity of your children, and really just sitting there until they kind of start to do that. Because the other one is nature is a boredom buster and really helps kids build that ability to manage boredom, which we want them to have long before they pick up a cell phone.
Right. Oh my gosh, so true. And, I love how practical your tips are, because I think so many times as parents, we feel like play should come naturally. And for many people, it does, and I'm always very happy for them. For me, it didn't. So I think it's sort of being concrete, right? You start with a prompt, and then once they get started, you sort of play next to them and let them, lead and ask the questions and, keep guiding us through some of those things. Pooja, what has your experience been here?
Yeah, I would add that, the other thing is that it's wonderful to have that time as a parent or, kind of the family member, but remember the larger village that, your child's friends and your friends or relatives, often creativity and child-directed play happens even more naturally when there's others there. And so that was just a great tool for me as a mom, is just getting out there and planning those outdoor play dates. So we didn't have to plan anything except just where we're going to meet. And then they would sort of take over. And, the side benefit is the adults get a little time as well.
Yes, which we love and we need. Now, I do have to ask you both, as someone who is raising a child in New York City, it is not always easy to find time and space to be outside. So how do you counsel families on ways to get outside within their own very unique circumstances? And I'll go to you first, Danette.
Well, that's exactly it. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Every family has a unique situation. And in an urban setting, there are many barriers to having lush outdoor vistas and landscapes, but you can still find that nearby nature, as I said, in some of these other spots, or even from the sidewalk. What's growing in the cracks? What's up in the sky? How about your flower box on your lanai? Or maybe you are growing something inside. You're reading books about it and planning for a trip to a little bit farther away park for the weekend. The other one is, time is such a barrier to so many families, just having the time. And really, like Pooja had mentioned, lean on your school and your childcare, your relatives. Ask them, be sure to take the kids outside. They really need their outdoor space. And here's what I would suggest, maybe to get them started if they don't really have that ready to go. And maybe take your usual things outside. So instead of eating indoors, take a picnic outside and eat outside. When you're in the car or the bus or the train, look out the window and talk about, wow, look at that tree now has flowers on it. When did that happen? Or now that tree has no leaves, really starting to talk about perhaps the seasons, the birds, the clouds, the weather, and what that might mean. Pooja has a whole bunch of other examples too.
Please tell us.
Yeah, well, what came to mind for me is something we've been talking about is this idea of a pyramid of your experiences or kind of the dose of nature that you might need. And the base of the pyramid are your everyday things. And that's where in the places that are closest to you, in your schoolyard, in and around your apartment building or house, children need nature every day, little doses wherever they can get, whether it's, looking at the night sky or looking at the tree in the schoolyard. But then, maybe once a week, you plan an excursion to a park that takes a little bit longer to get to. And maybe once a month, you're going to go a little bit further, maybe a half an hour or an hour ride to a state park, a national park. And maybe that top of the pyramid is those more immersive, a national park trip, a school trip, and a summer camp adventure that might only be possible once a year. It might only be possible with support or guidance from an organization if the parents are not able to do that. So really thinking about, what are those daily, easily accessible things, and then working up to those more immersive, awe-inspiring natural experiences.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you both, I'm just sort of going, okay, yes, I can do that. I can do that, right? It feels very manageable and very doable within the constraints, again, of my own unique circumstances. So I very much hope parents feel that way too. Now I'm going to throw one more curveball your way, because as we are recording this, we are in the middle of a heat wave here in New York City, which has made it very challenging to be outside. So give us some tips on how we can still get time in nature when we are experiencing extreme weather in our communities that is beyond, right, anything that we can do anything about. Danette, I'll go to you first.
Well, definitely weather has been listed as the top barrier to many of the parents that we've surveyed on getting out in nature and their barriers. Even little drizzly rain, not even extreme weather, sometimes just annoying weather. So definitely thinking ahead, checking to see what's safe. There's something called a heat index, which is with the humidity and the temperature actually bumps up the heat that we're experiencing as humans and makes it less safe. So double check about safety before you go out, and then make some plans. Maybe you can't go outside until nighttime when it finally cools off. Or maybe you have to experience being outside from inside. So again, looking out the window and talking about the nature you see. Have some nature books. Maybe you've checked them out from the library or have some on hand at home. Maybe you can do a little activity at home where you make a book together about things you like in nature and you're going to go out to when the extreme weather has calmed down. Pooja, what would you add?
Yeah, I would add that there are some circumstances, the extreme weather, where it may not be safe or where you may really need to curtail how long you're outside or time of day. But in general, we have talked about that saying of, there's no such thing as bad weather. You just have to be kind of prepared in the right way in terms of the right clothing, whether it's for extreme heat or extreme cold or rain. And for the most part, if children and adults are comfortable in what they're wearing, they've made those modifications, which in themselves are learning, right? Like, do we need a jacket today? Do we need to bring an extra water bottle and sunscreen? Like, how can we use all of these as learning opportunities and use them as ways to become more resilient to the things that we can't control?
Yes, I love that so much. I got to tell you, my little guy knows he needs his sunscreen and his bug spray to go to the park. And I just love that for him, right? To see him take responsibility for what's needed to enjoy his time outside and be safe. So definitely learning opportunities. Now, as we come to the end of our show, we like to end our episodes with what we call a parenting prescription. So when it comes to spending time outside and digging into nature, what is one thing you want all parents to remember? And Pooja, I'll go to you first to switch it up.
I would say that spending time in nature can look different for every single person, and everyone belongs in nature. And so what I mean by that is, we didn't touch on it too much, but you might have a child or a family member with a special healthcare need, a disability, a chronic health condition, or just what you're comfortable doing. You didn't grow up backpacking or being away from electricity for days. And it doesn't have to be that. And I think it's really finding for yourself, for your family, for your child, what it is that feels comfortable, and recognizing that spending time in nature is for all of us, and we can all find a way to be comfortable and find that joy.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pooja. What would you say, Danette?
Well, I want to pile on the joy part and give you a simple prescription, the 5 senses. That's something you have in your back pocket all the time. So get outside and with your child, experience what you see, what you hear about nature, what you smell, what you feel on your skin and under your feet. And if you can swing it, maybe even taste. Is there plants or berries or something that you know are safe to experience? Or are you just going to eat your meal outside and taste nature as you're eating it? And make it joyful. And you will always have a nature experience if you think about your 5 senses.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say what I want everyone to remember is to get your fantastic new book, Taking Into Nature, Outdoor Adventures for Happier and Healthier Kids from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And I'm really just so grateful to you both for writing this book and for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This was a joy. Thank you.
And thank you at home for joining us. If you like the Healthy Children podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app and help us spread the word. Follow Healthy Children on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Healthy Children AAP, and be sure to visit us at healthychildren.org, the parenting website of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Healthy Children is a production of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Our creative team includes
Laura Alessio,
Catherine Beard,
Garrett Brown,
Zach Christman,
Ann Johnsos, Kathy Jewell,
Claire Keating,
Doug Nagel,
Jackie Ortega,
Susan Stevens-Martin,
Mary Claire Walsh,
Hannah Weston.
And our theme music was composed by Doug Nagel. We'll be back next week. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. Thanks for listening.